Where's the cue ball going? It's that time of the year again. On Saturday, the World Snooker Championship starts at the Crucible. Me and my co-host are very, very excited, hence why it is time for the Tuesday Night Live special World Snooker Championship preview. For about the 6th time in a row, it's a Tuesday Night Live extra podcast. I think next week we will actually get this on Tuesday. Fingers crossed. If we do a podcast, that is. Why have you got Snooker 19 in the background? Couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do the layout, to be honest.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll keep talking while he does this.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. We are both very excited for the World Snooker Championship. We left it till here because the matches only got drawn at 11 o'clock this morning. I was watching that very excitedly, and we were both watching it and talking to each other while it was going on. And I was saying, well, Ronnie's definitely going to get... talking like Neil Folds. Ronnie's going to get Ali Carter. Definitely didn't happen. And then, of course, Joe does a very good Graham Dott impression, which we'll hear later on, won't we? And there's some very interesting ties just in the first round. Of course, these the best of 19 frames, the 16 matchups, and we're going to be predicting all of those matchups tonight, as well as, of course, first off, just talking about the runners and riders, the key runners and riders. I mean, no offence, but James Cahill probably won't win it, but I'd like to see the odds on him winning it. But we'll look probably maybe the 7 or 8 main runners and riders to see who we think will maybe make the final, and really just try and tip any shocks we can, and of course go through every single match and give our personal picks for who is going to win. But of course, I couldn't do this by myself. I could only do this with the man who possibly knows everything that needs to be known about snooker. It's Neil Folds. Sorry, it's not Neil Folds.
You're too kind.
Neil Folds too kind. Yeah. If there's anything you don't know, if there's anything that isn't worth knowing about snooker, you know, basically this chap doesn't know it, and he knows everything you need to know about snooker. And I think I've said that right, and I think that makes exact sense. So that's all right. So for my co-host tonight, there's 24 of you watching. That's absolutely fantastic. So let's finally welcome my co-host tonight. Give him a warm hand. Please welcome to the arena, Joe Hannard.
Oh, Captain Goodspeed. Hello, everyone. For some reason, I've broke your camera. I have no idea why that's happened. But no, your camera's working on my screen, but it's just not on the OBS. I use the display capture as well, so I have no idea why that's
probably Neil Folds hacking your computer after that comment.
But I guess what I can do is if you can cope with the lack of Snooker 19 in the background, then you know hopefully that'll work. What I've got up now, people are seeing Inceptions here, but hold on. All right, let's get you sized up. There you go.
Well,
if you're new around here, then we have these technical difficulties every single week. So
it's not we. I'm not being part of this week. You have these technical difficulties. It's all fine on my side. You know, I'm ready a good 30 seconds before the podcast. Oh God, I was fully on the screen then. This is a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. So there you go. I think it's sorted now. I haven't quite cut you to size, but never mind. Hello everyone. And yeah, the World Championship start this weekend.
Get to the point.
Yes, get to the point. Yeah, shame Jimmy White didn't qualify, but obviously we had the draw this morning, as Toby talked about before, until he started complaining about the background. But yeah, we're super excited for this Saturday. It's going to be 17 days of thrills, spills, drama, and well, hopefully it will be. Hopefully it won't be John Virgo, Dennis Taylor, Neil Folds if you're on the other channel. But yeah, no, you know, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's probably one of the most open World Championships that we've had for many, many years. You know, I think we say this every year, but the standard is getting higher. There's a lot of players coming into real good form. There's some players that really need to find some form as well, and we'll be discussing all of that tonight. If we get time, which we always do. So yeah, who are you looking forward to seeing at the World Championships this year?
Well, I'm going to make a bit of a statement first off, and I'm going to say Ronnie's not going to win the World Championship. I just don't see it happening. My favourite player is Ronnie, Robbo, of all of those players playing. Interested to see, obviously, how the amateur does, in quotation marks, James Cahill. Mark Selby, definitely a player who needs to get back to form. And as they were saying on, what were they saying it on now? Was it? It was on the draw list, wasn't it? Morning, wasn't it? That Mark Williams, of course, has been on the lash for the last 12 months. So he maybe needs to get it all sorted out now. But
I mean, you say that, but he has actually been coming into a little bit of form recently.
Yeah.
But.
And an interesting match was Trump against Unnu. Now, Unnu is the shootout champion.
Which means a lot.
Which just makes things, a bit interesting, because with Trump's not safety oriented. I mean, he's improved.
Aggressive playing.
Aggressive, that was the one I was kind of looking for. But yeah, he's definitely changed a bit over the last few years. But I'm just really looking forward to seeing my guys who I'm a big fan of. And also just looking at all of the players, see how they get on. I mean, this is my first World Championship, looking at it from someone who actually knows something about this, because it's only really about this time last year that I properly got into snooker. So this year I'm a lot more informed, and I can sit back and really embrace John Virgo and Dennis Taylor and whoever else is commentating, as long as it's not Folds.
Probably Peter Ebdon, Sean Murphy, because he'll get knocked out in the first round probably. But yeah, So hello to everyone in the chat, by the way. Thank you for all coming along. I think we have got a fair few of you in the stream tonight, which is wonderful. That noise in the background that you guys will have heard, but Toby won't have heard, is something to do with Streamlabs. Something used to pop up on the screen when people subscribed / donated, whatever. But for some reason it doesn't pop up anymore. But assuming it wasn't a donation, so we're all right there. But so I'm looking forward to seeing how Ronnie gets on this year. I think, it's obviously 5 years since he's won the World Championship, or 6 years including this one. And I think it's going to be a tough ask for him to get through the 17 days without having a bad session. A few years ago when he got the final against Selby, he won 3 of his matches with a session to spare and still managed to lose the final. So we'll see how he gets on this year. He's obviously been the informed player this season, but 17 days at the Crucible is a whole different kettle of fish. Looking forward to seeing how the likes of Mark Selby are going to do. John Higgins has obviously had a really bad season. Sean Murphy's had a terrible season. I'm pretty sure he's outside the top 32 on the 1 year list. So he's had a real shocker. And hopefully we'll see them players come back into form, and hopefully we'll see some new blood come through as well. It's always nice to see a new name come through the draw at Sheffield. But I think we've kept people waiting long enough. We're going to go through it sort of match by match, give our thoughts on the match, and then we'll talk a little bit about odds later on of who we think or who the bookies think is going to win the World Championship, and who we might think is a decent tip here and there, which means don't go for our tips if our other betting is anything to go by. And we'll also have a look at potential routes through the draw for certain players as well. So, first of all, 10 o'clock on Saturday, the World Championship gets underway, as it always does every year, with the world champion Mark Williams, who is going to be taking on Martin Gould in the first round match, which I think is actually a bit of a banana skin, actually. What are your thoughts about those two players? Do you think Mark Williams is going to have it easy, or...?
I don't think any game in the World Championship. I think that that would be very harsh and very kind of patronising on Martin Gould. I mean, he's currently ranked 29th, so not the best, but he's won tournaments before, won one ranking title at the 2016 German Masters, and funnily enough, we were only talking about it the other day, weren't we, with that with John Virgo's classic commentary moment. With
that wonderful clearance against Ding.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to this day how he managed that. That was, of course, the year Ding wasn't in the top 16, so had to qualify. So Martin Gould got the ultimate banana skin, because he was in the top 16 at the time. Got Ding Junhui in the first round, and Ding actually reached the final that year. So,
but I think that. I think Martin, he's a good player. As I say, no game's easy, but based off his form, I think that Mark Williams will beat him over 19 frames. Well, it's a long game. He's obviously won that one ranking title, but since then only won the Championship League, which is a non-ranking event against Lazowski. But apart from that, nothing really too impressive. Whereas obviously Williams is the holder. He will have some pressure because of that, but to be quite honest, yeah, I think that's Mark's game to lose.
Yeah, I think it could be Mark's game. It just depends, really. The first session blues, 10 o'clock in the morning's probably a bit early for Mark Williams. So
especially over the last 12 months.
Serious question, do you think the is as good as it was in the 80s and 90s? Well, unfortunately, I wasn't around back then, but...
well, I was.
I think that the standard is a lot better nowadays. There was probably a lot more drama back then. It seems to be a hell of a lot more close matches back then, and late finishes and deciding frames in the final. We haven't had one of them since 2002, so I really do want one, though, very soon, because I can just imagine the tension. We thought we were going to get it this year with Higgins and Williams, but it didn't quite, or last year now, with Higgins and Williams, but didn't quite transpire. But yeah, I think Mark Williams is obviously favoured for that match, but if Martin Gould comes out of the blocks and, leads 6-3 or 7-2 after the first session, then, I'd flip it the other way, but, because obviously there's 9 frames going to be played in the first session, of each of the first round matches, so it's going to be absolutely vital. I want a game on Snooker 19. Not right now, thank you. So yeah, we both think Mark Williams for that match. And the next match, and I think a very underrated matchup in the draw, actually, Dave Gilbert versus Joe Perry, a very evenly matched encounter in my opinion, and Dave Gilbert seeded for the first time this year. He's reached 3 ranking finals this season, I think, or definitely 2, maybe 3. Hasn't managed to get his hands on the silverware yet, but do you know much about these two players, from what you've seen? Obviously, Joe Perry knocked out Mark Selby in last year's World Championship on the first day, so...
Well, it's not really hard, is it? But at the moment, I mean, to be honest, as you say, they're 2 very evenly matched players. David Gilbert being number 16 on the ranking, and Joe Perry, if the page actually loads, I'm not getting this from memory, at number 18. So, again, very evenly matched. I think possibly the most evenly matched in terms of rankings anyway, in these 16 matches. But that's one you just can't call. It's one of them that there's not an obvious result of, like there probably is with the Mark Williams game. No disrespect to Martin Gold, but there are 5 or 6 games where you've got the main runners and riders and you think, yeah, they'll get through that. But with this one, they're both very good players, both very evenly matched. I don't know why, but something suggests that Gilbert will edge that one for me. I don't really know why.
Yeah, I think the one thing going for Joe Perry is he's played absolutely brilliantly in the qualifiers. He's only lost 5 frames getting to this stage, which over 35 frames to only lose 5 is pretty impressive. So he's got those. He's got those 3 match wins under his belt. He's match sharp, as Kenny said about Martin Gold, and it's a very tricky one for David Gilbert. We have another Streamlabs sound. I think I might have to get rid of that somehow, but I honestly don't know how. So you'll just have to put up with the odd ring in the. Yeah, I think Joe Perry might edge that one myself. I think the pressure of the occasion might get a little bit much for Dave Gilbert. But I'd like to be proved wrong. I do quite like watching Gilbert play. Both of them players I quite like. It would be nice to see one of them get a run in the tournament. And, it's definitely an open heart quarter of the draw to me, that one, to go pretty far in the competition. But you think Gilbert just, I think Perry just, so very closely sort of anticipated match. But I think if anybody's going to win it comfortably, it'll be Perry. That's just a hunch. Anyway, next one. Barry Hawkins versus Li Hang. Now, Li Hang is one of the 7 Chinese players playing at the Crucible this year. Another debutant. And, Barry Hawkins has made his mark on the Crucible, shall we say, since 2013. He's got the one table set up, I think, 5 out of 6 years or something crazy like that. He's been absolutely brilliant at the Crucible the last few years, and he's always going to be tough to stop. So what do you think about that match?
I think with just looking at Li Hang's qualifying results, they're all pretty close in round 3 and round 2, winning on 10-8 on both occasions. In the first one, winning 10-5. But yeah, it seems like an interesting one. Bazza Hawkins, one who's been around for quite a while, it feels like, and I think Barry will just get through this. I know that on some of these matches it might look like, well, he's a better ranking. I know that is, so I'm going to back him. But I think it just comes down to experience. You said, it's Lee's first snooker championship, first World Snooker Championship, and the experience of Barry Hawkins is going to be crucial in that one. It's the best of 19 frames. Again, I know that Li Hang is match ready, so he has got experience recently in those games. But I would probably back Barry Hawkins to get into the next one, just because I think there is a point where, upsets can happen, but I think in this, looking at the form, looking at just, hunch, I think that over 19 frames, Hawkins just has the experience and all the elements that make up the frames, and I think he will win that one. Probably about 10. I think Li Hang will come back and do decently, maybe 10-5, 10-6. I don't think he'll be beaten terribly, but I think Barry Hawkins will just have the edge.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Hawkins will win that one quite comfortably myself. It is always tough for debutants at the Crucible, and especially Chinese ones, it would seem. So I would back Barry Hawkins probably to win 10-4, 10-5, something like that in the first round, and get his Crucible campaign off to a good start. So next we have Kyron Wilson, the Warrior, last year's semi-finalist, playing Scott Donaldson, one of the rising stars on this year's Snooker 19 game. And he got the semi-final of the China Open recently, so he's in a lot of form. Was 9-2 up or something last night and got pegged back to 9-9 before winning the deciding frame 10-9. Or winning the deciding frame, winning the match 10-9. So Donaldson is in form. Kyron Wilson hasn't done a great deal in the second half of the season. He won the German Masters, but apart from that, I haven't seen him featuring at the business end of tournaments too much, but he's a very solid player and well established in the top 16 now. But what do you think about the match?
I'm going to go for an upset here. I think Scott Donaldson's going to win this.
You reckon?
I do. He knocked out Sal Bjorn in the last year, 2 years ago actually. Now, blimey, the 2017 UKs. And as you say, he's in good form. Reached the semis of the Gibraltar Open, the Paul Hunter Classic, which Kyron won, and the China Open. So, very impressive form, I have to say. For a player that's not particularly well fancied. And I just think that, as you say, Kyron's not in brilliant form, and I think if I had to pick one game that could quite easily swing the other way, I would pick this one. I fancy Scott Donaldson to get through, and in fact, I think he could be a bit of a shock and potentially beat Barry Hawkins.
Okay. Fair enough. So you reckon a quarter-final for Scott Donaldson?
Possibly. Might be the only Scott to get there if Higgins and Dotts and McGill and Maguire don't do anything. But
well, you never know.
You never know.
I'm just going to take Toby's ugly mug off the screen for a second, just while we change the overlay. But next match, next match, I think this one's going to be a cracker. Battle of the old dogs here. Mark Davis, the oldest man in the draw at the age of 46, playing John Higgins, Wizard of Wishaw, 4-time world champion. What do you think about that one?
As I say, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Battle of the ages, and Big John, of course, the other finalist last year, missing out so closely, really. Nearly becoming world champion for the 5th time, first time since 2011, which would have been great, but I think he's been overshadowed a little bit by his suspension, a little bit in his career with the whole match fixing and all that. But he's come back from that, and his current ranking is number 5, which has to be looked at pretty impressive considering the guys who were above him.
A lot of it rests on last season's form, though.
Yeah, it does. I'm just saying that
honest.
he's got to be considered as a top player, and the fact he got to the final last year highlights that as well. He's got an MBE as well, so no. But apart from all that rubbish, I think that Mark Davies will give all his steel. I think again he's the most experienced in terms of age anyway on this roster. I just wanted to clear that up because everyone, no, he hasn't played as many games. I was just saying in terms of age. Calm down. I got my faults. But I think
your hero Neil Folds, former world number 3.
I think he'll be similar to the Barry Hawkins Lee Hand game in terms of that score. I think Mark Davies will fight really rugged. If he gets off to a good start, that could unnerve the Wizard a little bit, but I reckon John Higgins will just about edge this one. It'll be a lot closer than some people think. Higgins is going to win easily, but I think that it'll be closer. But I think I can see Higgins getting through this.
Yeah, I think Higgins' form is just the question mark for me. But over the long matches, he's going to dig in there, and I think it'll be a bit of a scrappy match, that one. I don't think we're going to see centuries every frame. But I agree with you. I think Higgins is going to get through, probably about 10-6, 10-7. I think Mark Davies over the last couple of years has just regressed a little bit, I think. He was quite nicely in the top 16 for a couple of years. But I think Higgins will get the better of him. He's been in the last 2 finals at Sheffield, so he does need a big result here. Otherwise, he's going to plummet down the rankings a little bit. But yeah, I think Higgins to get through just about 10-6, 10-7. Next one then, we have got Stuart Bingham versus Graham Dott. Now, this is the tie of the round for me. Closely rivaled by another one that we'll talk about later on, but this is impossible to call, and Stuart Bingham will possibly come out of that the unhappiest man, I think.
Can you do your Graham Dott impression?
No.
I had to ask. But,
if we play him in Snooker 19, we will do it. That's a promise for you.
A bit of self-promotion, typical. But
it's my channel, come on. If you want to go and check out TIG, he'll stick his link in the chat.
No, it's alright. But as you say, the tie of the round for me in terms of just a general match-up. Again, both very closely matched. Stuart Bingham, a bit of an unknown quantity. I think he can be quite inconsistent. He can be up there really well sometimes. I remember watching the Welsh Open final where in the first few frames he was rubbish, and then something clicked and he just went. So he has got the capacity, but whether he can or not is a debate. And I think Graham Dott's very happy that I think he said something like, well, the postmen still know that I'm playing.
There was something last year that a delivery driver brought him something and then said, "Oh, you're Graham Dott, aren't you? Do you still play?" And he was playing at the World Championship the next day, and it was so yeah. Graham Dott.
There we go. I got it out of him.
No, he's a wily character. Graham Dott always, gives it his all at the Crucible. He's won 15 consecutive qualifying matches in World Championship qualifiers, which is amazing considering the standard in the qualies. But yeah, this other lad have a YouTube channel for Snooker 19. Yes, he does. Stick your link in the chat for everybody to go and find him. There's Snooker 19 stuff over there as well, and we'll talk about his player in a minute. But yeah, this is going to be a cracking match, I think. Graham Dott was 7-2 up on Ali Carter last year, I think, and somehow lost that match 10-9. And lost me a large sum of money as well from a pound accumulator.
You were never going to win it.
To be fair, I was 2 matches off. I think it was that Dot match. I can't remember the other one, but yeah, that still haunts me. That would have been something like £1,400 or whatever from a £1 bet. Which I'll be doing again this year, but probably not as successfully. But I think Graham Dott might get through this one. As you say, Stuart Bingham has been a little bit up and down lately. Yes, he's been in very good form on paper, but in a lot of those matches, he's been scrapping around, but then in other matches he's been knocking in centuries every frame. Bingham's dangerous. He's obviously won the World Championship before, but I think again it's going to be a tight match. I think it could go 10-8, 10-9 this one, but I'm going to back Graham Dott in this one.
Interesting.
We have another Streamlabs jingle.
It's a very close one to call, isn't it? It's a really close one because they are both solid players.
Mm-hmm.
Just to play devil's advocate, I think I'm going to go for Bingham. I think he'll bring his A game. Dott's had, he's had the qualifiers, so he's match ready, but potentially he's a little bit. How can I find a formal way to say this? Not out of puff, but maybe he's played, and Stuart Bingham coming to it fresh. If he brings his A game, Stuart Bingham wins.
Yeah.
But if he brings that game that we've also seen, then he's going to lose quite emphatically, I would say. But no, I'm going to unfortunately say that the first Scott's going to be knocked out here. The three we've talked about so far, and go for big ball Bingham.
Mm-hmm. Ball run Bingham. Paul MacDonald in the chat. Any idea how to invite friends on Snooker 19? Well, if you're on the Xbox side, I'm pretty sure the online stuff has been turned off, but it's worth a go anyway. But when you're on the online quick match screen, you press triangle or Y, whichever one it is, and a text box will come up. You change that code to something you and your friend will put in, and then press X or A, I guess, on Xbox side. And I believe that's how you do it. I don't have any friends, so I don't know. But we don't know how true that is. Yeah, so I haven't tried it out, but that certainly seems
Scott
to be.
Donaldson's 80-1 to get to the quarters.
Oh well, there you go. It's probably because he's got Big Baz in his quarter, as well as Kyron. So that's tough.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's on PS4, so that should work for you. Apologies about this Streamlabs thing. It's bugging me as well, but there's no way to turn it off without stopping the stream. So, you choose. Although they'll probably pick stop stream, won't they? The rascals. Anyway, we're on to the next match in this sort of half of the draw. So we've got Sean Murphy, the magician, who has had, quite honestly, a terrible season. And he's playing Liu Hong Ho, who played Marco Fu, played and beat Marco Fu in the first round of qualifying. So a very good victory for him in this in qualifying, and he could cause an upset. And I think if anybody's going to go out in round one, Sean Murphy is a pretty decent bet. Yeah,
I see your logic there. I think I would fancy that, actually. Again, a very young player, only the age of 19, would make it a brilliant story, wouldn't it, for him to get through to the next round. And to be fair, at the 2018 English Open, he was only beaten 5-3 by Ronnie, so it's not like he's a complete mug, and he's defeated the likes of Marco Fu, Robbie Williams, and Tom Ford in the qualifiers. So again,
all very good players, yeah.
Again, it's not like he's played one good player and two mediocre ones. Those are three very good names. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with you. I think I'd back the other player to win. I don't want to try and pronounce
Hong Hao, or call him Lou. I think it's Lou, isn't it? Lou.
I'm going to back Liu Hong Hao rather than Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy is 36th on the 1 year ranking, for anybody that's wondering. Obviously, 3-time finalist if you include his one sole victory back in 2005. But Sean Murphy getting on a little bit now, but still crazily, the similar sort of age to the likes of Selby and Robertson, even though he won his world title all the way back in 2005. Hasn't gone on to win too much after that, really. He's obviously won the Masters in the UK, but certainly recently he's struggling a bit, and a lot of first round defeats for him, and just generally playing really badly. But equally, he could be a dark horse. He comes into this tournament fresh, and I certainly know he's got the game to do it, but he's got to get past this first obstacle first, and I think it's going to be a pretty tough one.
Yeah,
so, on to the last match of this half of the draw, and it's your man, the Australian Thunder from Down Under, Neil Robertson, the second Aussie we've mentioned after... no, actually, we haven't mentioned Ronnie yet, so it is the first Australian. And he's playing the first ever Cypriot to... grace the Crucible Theatre. Michael, well, not the theatre in general, just on the bays, shall we say. Michael Georgiou, who is another former shootout winner, along with Tepchai Unnu, who we'll talk a little bit about later. But I think this is a fairly one-sided match on the cards, and that's not because of Michael Georgiou, but it's because of the second half of the season Neil Robertson's had. Tell us about that.
Robbo has just been... He's the best player at the moment, to be quite honest. I know that he's been beat by Ronnie, but Robbo is playing some fantastic snooker at the moment. Let's just all raise a glass to Georgiou because he managed to beat Peter Ebdon. Thank God for that. He beat Peter Ebdon and made sure that he could get through to the finals. He beat Lee Walker, Peter Ebdon and Bing Tao to get... But as you say, I think this is pretty much a foregone one because he's playing Robbo. Imagine if it was Ebdon against Robbo. Oh, God. But yeah, I think Robbo's in absolutely outstanding form, and I think it would be a serious upset for Georgiou to beat Robbo. So I think this is pretty much cut and dry. Robbo to win.
Yeah, I think probably, unfortunately, a 10-4, 10-3 victory for Robbo. 4 ranking finals in his last 4 played events, I think, or 5 played events. As you say, taking the best of Ronnie to beat him in 2 finals recently. So Robertson is a force to be reckoned with, and definitely a serious contender for this year's World Championship. And I think, honestly, probably the first serious contender we've talked about. I'm not sure anyone else we have said yet, is going to quite cut it this year, in my opinion. But then there might be a few in this next half of the draw. First up,
which makes that quite interesting, actually.
Yeah. First up, we have 3-time world champion, 5-year running world number 1, Mark Selby, the jester from Leicester, who, by his standards, hasn't had the best of seasons. He's still won an event or 2, and only very recently lost out his number 1 rank Ronnie O'Sullivan. But that's because Ronnie O'Sullivan has had an incredible couple of years in terms of winning a lot of tournaments. But Mark Selby starts off against Zhao Xingtong. Do you fancy that one, Toby? In the first round. I'm not entirely sure when he's kicking off, actually. When is the Jester on? He is on Monday, so the same day that Ronnie kicks off as well, as possibly Murphy's already got off. Anyway, Selby plays on Monday, so he's at least got an extra weekend to prepare. And he'll be playing Zhao Xingtong, who is, again, an up-and-coming Chinese player. I think he got back on the tour from Q School this year. That might be the wrong player, that I'm not entirely sure. But, I think it'll probably quite easily be a Mark Selby victory. But you never know what Mark Selby's going to turn up, and I think that's the big question mark hanging over this match.
Definitely. I think it would be quite easy to say, actually, that Mark Selby had crumbled, but I think he will get through this game. The other player, I'm like a snooker commentator here, aren't I, on a game. Player 1 is he's a solid player, He's we're talking about Selby, by the way. I don't know why I've said he's solid, it's a bit dodgy, but I think he'll get through this one. I don't think he's going to get to the later stages of the event unless he brings his real A game, which he's got. We're certain he's got that, but at the moment, he's just not playing well. Certainly by his standards, and he needs to improve that. But I think he'll get through this round. But looking later down in the tree, there are some players that I think will knock him out because he just hasn't got the real sort of, I suppose, form and confidence to play some of the shots. But did you know a little bit of a trivia fact for you folks? Just reading Wikipedia page. Dennis Taylor has given Mark Selby.
I've wrote trivia now because of you in the chat.
He's oh wow! He's
never mind. Go on.
He's given Selby the nickname of Sat-Nav Selby because of his ability to
what Dennis did.
Yeah, escape from snookers and his knowledge of angles. I mean, Dennis Taylor, well, cracker.
I christen him Sat-Nav Selby.
Yeah, Sat-Nav Selby. But I think Selby will get through this. But
I think so as well.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a shock. Do you know what I mean? If I looked at that and he didn't go through, I would go, goodness me. But
you would go, hang on. No, I agree with you. To be honest with you, I think Selby will just about get through. I think he's quite lucky because I think if he drew somebody like Ali Carter or Graham Dott, even, I think he would be second favourite. In my book, anyway, he wouldn't be with the bookies, but. Yeah, I think he's going to be lucky in the fact he's playing a debutant, and we'll see how he gets on. He plays both his sessions in the same day, funnily enough. So if he has a bad day, then he could potentially go out. He hasn't got the night to recover or whatever. But is this an ongoing stream or just for the Worlds? It is Podcasters Weekly. Thank you, Toby.
But, even if Selby does, win it, then his draw in the next round won't provide him with any solace.
Any solace? Well, you say that, but next we have Luca Brissell, the Belgian Bullet, versus Gary Wilson, who's from nearish me. He's from just over the River Tyne, and former taxi driver actually. This is an interesting one because Luca Brissell's never won a match at the Crucible. I think he's played there 3 or 4 times now. Never won a match there. But Gary Wilson hasn't won a match there either. So, somebody's going to... Yeah. You would think Luca Brissell, he got to the semi-final at the China Open. Did pretty well at the Masters in January as well. His last, big stage event, if you like. BBC event, shall we say, unless you count the Welsh Open. But, it's only on BBC Wales, to be fair, so, Luca Brissell, probably favourite for that match. But again, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him because he hasn't won a match there yet, and a lot of people are expecting big things from Brissell, and I know you're a big fan of him. You took a fancy to him at the Masters in January, didn't you?
Yeah, I do like Brissell. As you say, you get as well as Robbo. I think I'd probably back Brissell here. As you say, I think neither player's won, so that's got to come to a little bit of a stop at some point, but just a bit of a hunch. I fancy Brissell again. He's the seeded player. I know that doesn't mean much, but Gary Wilson being in the 32 ranking and has just dropped down from 29 in March of this year. But I've got not every faith in Brissell, but I think he's the likely winner, and I can't really look past that too much. But pressure on both players for over 19 frames. I reckon Brissell will win it. And of course, if we say he's going to go against Selby, and that was my hint from beforehand that potentially Selby might not make it to the round after that.
Yeah, you see, I think Selby's got quite a comfortable route to the quarters if he can find his game. Personally, he can tie Luca Brissell up in knots. That's the thing.
But with a lot of these players, the likes of Bingham and Selby, it's all about if, isn't it? If they bring their A game, I think the same applies to Mark Allen as well. If they bring their A game, they can do it very easily because they've got the ability. But if they don't play well, there aren't any mugs here.
That's the thing. I just think over 25 frames, Luca Brissell, I struggle to see him winning 13 frames against Selby before Selby gets 13 frames. Unless Brissell just knocks every ball in. I think Selby can just make it ultra negative, and I don't think Brassel's quite got the all-round game to cope with that. And, you know, if Selby can get through matches making 30 breaks, you know, playing TIJ snooker. I'm only joking. But
it's a good term to use.
I think Brassel will come through that match, and it could be the coming of Brassel this year. You know, if he beats Mark Selby in the second round, and all of a sudden he's in the quarters, with a very good chance of getting to the semis, in my opinion. You know, could be Brassel. That's the dark horse this year. Who knows? Anyway, on to the next one. Another up-and-coming young wizard, Jack Lazowski, the jackpot. And he's playing Ali Carter, the captain, fired up after, you know, his wins in quali. Obviously won over Jimmy White, which disappointed a lot of people, myself included. Jimmy was 3-1 up. I thought, well, maybe Jimmy can do it this year, but he lost 10-4, so, you know. But arguably the match of the round, there's a couple of those, but this is going to be a tough one for Lazowski, in my opinion. What do you think? I know you're a fan of the captain.
I am a fan of Cap. No pun intended. Of course, Ali's got to come through the qualifiers, which Lazowski hasn't, of course. But as you say, I think I would back Ali here. I know that some people don't particularly like Ali Carter. I can't possibly see why. But you know, he's been a solid player for a number of years. Twice runner-up to Ronnie in the World Championship. Was quite impressive. I know I saw him at the Grand Prix against Judd Trump. Played pretty well there, even though Trump did win that match. But, you know, a few runner-ups in the last few years, and he's not playing his best snooker, but he's certainly not a bad player. He's always a solid one to back, is Ali. So is Lazowski, really. You know, he's an impressive player, but I did worry for him a little bit in the way that he got absolutely thrashed at the China Open by Robbo in the final. You know, he didn't give any real... You know, Ronnie Robbo won 11-4, and I think he was 9-1 up. You know, and I think that it just proves that potentially over longer matches has Lazowski got what it takes.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Lazowski is an incredibly talented player, and if you watch him, you would think he was Ronnie if you had no sound on or anything like that. He's an incredibly talented. The one thing about Lazowski is his consistency, and one thing you need at the Worlds is consistency. He got absolutely thumped by John Higgins in the second round last year. I think it might have been something like 13-3, 13-2, something absurd like that, which is a big defeat, and as you say, 11-4 in the most recent final at the China Open. I don't think Lazowski has proved he can beat the real top players of the game, a bit like Brassel, really. You know, he can beat the players around him and maintain his top 16 ranking more than likely, but he hasn't got the big victory over a Selby, over a Robertson, over a O'Sullivan, over a long match. And, you know, I think that could be the difference in this one. I think Ali Carter will win this match, and it you know, sets up quite a mouth-watering match in potentially in the next round, which we talk about. But who do you think's going to win it?
Ali.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think there's much more to say on that. I think
the three matches is going to really help Ali Carter. Match sharp. You know, if he gets off to a good start against Lazowski, I don't see another winner. If Lazowski wins the first 4 frames, then, you know, it's a different story. But anyway, Mark Allen in the next round, match 12. He'll be playing Zhao Yu Long in his second year at the Crucible. I can't quite remember. He went out in the first round last year, but I can't quite remember who he was playing or what the score was. But I quite like Zhao Yu Long. I've watched a little bit of him through some tournaments, and I like the way he plays. But again, it's another case of Mark Allen is one of the top players now after winning the Masters. He got the final of the UK's and won the Scottish Open the month after, but has been a little bit wayward recently. He's had some troubles off the table, and obviously famously walked out of his match against Ali Carter at the Grand Prix. But he's always a player with a lot of bottle, and over 19 frames. I can't see him being beaten in this one.
Yeah, it was Ding that Ewan played last year. Was defeated 10-5. But like you say, Mark Allen, and he's another one like Bingham, Murphy, Selby. There's a lot of players that are really solid. And as you say, he's had troubles off the table, but he's a solid player. You know, I've seen him be really solid. But he's a solid player. You know, as you say, Yulong got here last year, beating Keegan, Christopher Keoghan. We'll go with that. Ian Priest and Ben Wollaston to get here last year. So, you know, he's no mug. And I've said this for a lot of players, but I think that he's a decent player, but could have maybe done with a bit more of an easy draw. I think that Mark Allen probably thrive on this, thinking that, well, you know, if I can get past this, and if I get past Jack and Ali, I'm through to the quarters, which it's not the easiest, but it could certainly be harder for Mark Allen. So I think he'll take some solace from that, and I think he'll win this one. Not massively again, but I think he'll win this one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Mark Allen will come through that one. I think that's one of the more cut and dry ones of the round. Unless Mark Allen is having a real off day, I don't see him losing that one. So, match 13, unlucky for some. Judd Trump, the ace in the pack, or the Juddernaut as you like to call him. He's playing Shootout Champion and the fastest player on the circuit, Tepchaya Unnu. Is it Ono for Unnu?
Oh dear. I think Judd's got this. Again, another player I'm very impressed with. Probably the third best at the moment behind. I mean, you probably put him ahead, maybe even put him ahead of Robbo, but in the top three at the moment, I think. And I think that he's a solid player. He's coming on as well. He's only getting better. And, you know, I think that he will win this one again. I knew he's a solid player. He's won the snooker shootout, proved that technically he's got what it takes in terms of the accuracy, his angles on pots, and really kind of, I know it was only over one frame in the snooker shootout final, but he's kind of got the bottle. You know, he's, pressure doesn't phase him too much, suggested by that. I know it's only over one frame, but again, it's big pressure. But I think that just like a few of these matches, and I think that will probably highlight, if you watch back and look, we've said this before, this will highlight the runners and riders in terms of our big 6 or 7. Judd Trump's going to get through this purely because of his ability.
Yeah, Judd Trump definitely the favourite. Tepchaya has the talent. He can reel off, frames as fast as anyone, but, over 19 frames, it is going to be incredibly tough, in my opinion. Funny how you said about Tepchaya's bottle, but he is actually quite famous for missing quite a few 1-4-7 opportunities. Missing the last black a couple of times and stuff like that. But, it's a totally different thing at the Crucible over 19 frames. I agree with you. I think Tepchaya will win a few frames quite stylishly. It's going to be an attacking match, I think. Don't think you'll see much safety play in it. But Judd Trump has got the safety game now. We've seen it since the turn of the year. He's got the patience there now. But every now and then, Trump just gets frustrated and starts whacking the balls everywhere. And that's when you've got to get him. Because once he starts doing that, you knock a couple of frames down and he starts getting in a bit of a huff. So, I think potentially an upset if Tepchaya can reel off a few frames in a row. But generally, I think it's going to be a 10-7, 10-8 victory for Judd Trump. Although last year, he played Chris Wakelin, and I remember he was something like 9-5 up, and then Wakelin won the next 4. This guy that most people hadn't heard of before and haven't heard of since. And I'm pretty sure he was pretty well set in the decider as well, but Trump came through it in the end. But Trump hasn't been to the one table setup for a number of years now. I think 2015 was the last time, and he got beat by Stuart Bingham in the deciding frame. So yeah, Trump to win that one in my opinion, and we move on to another match that has the potential to be a good one, but Ding Junhui against Anthony McGill, the Ginger Ninja. And we're not talking about Ding there, let's be honest. So
I wasn't too shocked about that, but Ding, in terms of being the ranked player who seeded for this, and Ding again a very solid player, and a player I quite like. He's been the most successful Asian player, I think, really, and he's the only Chinese player I think that's playing in this that isn't making their debut. Which apart from
Yu Long has definitely played there before. And I
think there's possibly 4 or 5 then that are making their debut.
Yeah.
But let's just scrap that. Again, we get some things wrong, but it's okay. But again, he's been quite impressive. He's been the course highest #1 ranking. He's no fool, and let's just have a look at his achievements recently. Of course, played in the Grand Prix in 2018 against Ronnie and got bashed, but won his last ranking title in the World Open against Kyron Wilson in 2017. Hasn't got a bad run, to be honest, and it's a tricky one to predict. This is because I think McGill could pull something a bit of a shock out.
Yeah, I mean McGill I think got to 2 consecutive quarterfinals, but he's dropped off the face of the earth this season. I'm pretty sure he's in the 80s on the 1-year ranking list. I'm just gonna have a little scroll down there. 63, sorry. So, if it was a 1-year, ranking system, he'd be close to dropping off the tour. And, that seems absolutely crazy to say about one of Glasgow's finest. But, yeah, I think Ding could come through that. But I'm pretty sure McGill has beaten Ding at the Crucible before. So, it's a tough one to predict. You never know which Ding is going to turn up. He's done well at the Crucible the last couple of years, but before that really seriously struggled at the Crucible. So I think that one could be a variable one. It's all going to depend on who gets off to the best start in that match. McGill, funnily enough, was 7-2 down to the milkman Robert Milkins in the final round of qualifying, and McGill won 7 frames in a row to go 9-7 in front and won 10-8 in the end, I think. So he's coming into it with confidence and really nothing to lose, because he would have thought 7-2 down, I'm not going to get through. But we'll see. Definitely one to keep your eye on. I'm gonna bite the bullet and say McGill for that one, just randomly. You reckon Ding?
Ding for me, yeah.
You'll be having nightmares. Don't remind me then. Anyway, Stephen Maguire versus Tian Peng Fei. Now, the first time that Stephen Maguire has not had to qualify for a number of years, back in the top 16 this year, although I'm not entirely sure how, because I don't really know what he's done this year, but Maguire, certainly a solid player. He's reached a number of semi-finals at the world at the World Championship, so I can't really look past him. But again, he's another one that's hot and cold, really. He could turn up and play no snooker. I know Dechawat Poomjang actually beat him a few years ago. You won't know him. He's before your time, Toby, but he was a bit of a crazy one. But Tian Peng Fei playing his first Crucible campaign, I think, and it's difficult to say this match, but I would be inclined to back Maguire. I don't know. Don't really know on this match.
Yeah, I think I'll back Maguire as well. I think Peng Fei looks good. He's more experienced than some of these Chinese players that are playing this year. But I think this will be quite a close one. A very close run, I'd say. Maybe even go down to a decider. Because I think this is one that, we say this for a lot of games, depends what version of players turns up. But I think this will be very close. And there could be a shock. So I'm going to say Maguire. But if I was going for something that could be a bit of a shock, I could go for Peng Fei. It wouldn't be such a ridiculous statement to say that. Especially not as ridiculous as going against the favourite for this next game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it has to be Maguire, but I'm just not sure about it, because Maguire can turn up and not do anything, but we'll see. But you'll be going out in the next round anyway, probably. So the final match, obviously the big favourite for the World Championship this year, James Cahill. No. Yeah, Ronnie O'Sullivan, of course, who has recently regained his world number 1 status for the first time since 2010, and has also completed the incredible feat of 1,000 centuries, and has also equalled Stephen Hendry's all-time ranking record at 36, and has won the most majors in the sport at 19. So Ronnie has had an eventful season. Is it going to be his year to win a 6th world title? Who knows? But first up, he's playing the amateur James Cahill. And why isn't he really an amateur, Toby?
Oh, are we coming to the real professional to talk about this? He's been on the tour before, fundamentally.
4 years as well.
Yeah, he's been on the tour.
Beat Mark Selby at the UK's this year as well.
That's not hard to do. That's not impressive.
Dear.
But I think good old Ronald McDonald will win this one.
Yeah.
There's not really much about that. I mean, I think that James will get a frame or two, but I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Ronald.
I don't know. I think Cahill will actually do better than a lot of people think. I think the fact people are calling him an amateur is doing him a massive disservice. I think, he's beaten Ding before at the UK's. He's beaten Mark Selby, obviously, this season. And has ran Ronnie close in a couple of matches that they have played. He's actually Stephen Hendry's nephew, which, people might not know, but... yeah, I don't think he's blood related per se, so we can't say that it's in his blood or whatever. But he's obviously playing Ronnie. Again, Ronnie's another one. You don't know which one's going to turn up, but over the long distance, he's shown it this year in matches that he's capable of turning any match around, really. And given a few more frames at the Masters in January, I would have probably backed him to do that there. He was on fire on the evening session after falling 7-1 behind. But I can't really look past Ronnie for this one, and it'll probably be 10-3, 10-4, I would have thought. But I hope for Cahill's sake that he does okay and shows us what he's made of, because he's definitely capable and a rising star on this year's Snooker 19 game. Just to let people know. But yeah, that's the first round matches. I'm assuming you're backing Ronnie for that one. So some very interesting matchups on there. Ronnie starts on Monday, by the way, at 2 p.m, I think. So check him out. And so we've said who we're going to back in each of the individual matches, but now we'll have a little chat about who we think might go on and feature well in this tournament. So who do you think? But say 3 players who you think to keep an eye on at this year's World Championship.
Well, I'm not going to say Ronnie, because I think that's a bit of a cop-out. So I'm going to say Neil Robertson. I disagree with your Mark Williams state. I think you don't think he'll get very far, but I think he will again.
Who?
Mark Williams.
Who's this? Sorry.
Mark Williams.
Okay.
The Alki from Wales. Robbo, Mark Williams, and let's also go with a little bit of an interesting one, Ruka Brazil.
Okay.
Players
players to watch out for. I think.
Falls.
You know what? I agree with you. I think Luca Bracel is a player to look out for in this tournament. If he gets through that first round, Bracel could quite easily find himself in a semi-final, I think. Which would be quite insane, considering he's never won a match there before. But those sorts of stories happen all the time. Players not winning a match at a certain venue, then all of a sudden they get to the final or something silly like that. But I'm pretty sure Barry Hawkins went a long time before he won his first match at the Crucible, and he's been at the one table set up 5 of the last 6 years, or it's crazy how form can change. But Luca Brassel's my first pick. I think Barry Hawkins is always one to watch at the Crucible.
Barry Hawkins.
I think Neil as well. I think Neil will have a very strong tournament. I think Neil's got quite a comfortable half of the draw.
Yeah.
Really. I can't see past a Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Robertson. I nearly said Neil Folds. Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Robertson final at this point, which would be another Titanic battle. Simply because there's not, apart from Trump, I'm not sure there's anybody else in that bottom half that can beat Ronnie, unless Selby or Ding is on their game, and on recent form, that's possibly not going to be the case. So, yeah, I'm gonna put it out there. I think Robertson might win the World Championship though this year.
I'd be very inclined to agree.
Yeah.
I think that I want to play any cards right now. I don't think that he deserves. I don't say, well, he deserves it, so he's going to win it. But I think he will get to at least the last four. Be conservative. Joining him there, gotta say Ronnie. But that Judd Trump against Ronnie O'Sullivan will be a good match for me.
Yeah, quarter final. Yeah, over 25 frames, Trump can beat Ronnie. Over 33, I'm not sure Trump can beat Ronnie. So I think it's quite lucky for Trump that it's just fell on that side of the draw, really.
And Brasel against Allen. I mean, if Allen gets through to the semis, Allen can beat. Ronnie's not got an easy run to the final. He could play one of. He's definitely going to play Trump.
Yeah, you would say he's either going to play Ding or Trump, and then he has to beat Selby or Allen or a dark horse. Exactly. So it's not going to be easy at all. And Ronnie's got all the pressure on him this year because people expect it massively.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas with Mark Williams, he'll have to beat. Really, probably either Barry or Wilson. I know I was on about Donaldson, but realistically, either Hawkins or Wilson to get to the semis. So I think that Ronnie hasn't got an easy side of the draw. I think that it's quite comfortable for Robertson, certainly up to the last 8. But it'll be a very interesting one. I like how the draws turned out. Some good matchups, but a few of the big players are going to have fairly easy runs the second round, maybe even the finals. But we'll definitely see some big matchups, and it's been quite nice how they've played out. It's not like we're going to get the definite kind of status of big players going out early. We also have some really confirmed good matches. We've got pretty much Judd against Ronnie. We've got the possibility of Allen against Selby, Robertson against Higgins, and Wilson against Williams, which would be a lot of the top 8 being in there. I think in fact all of the top 8 being there. If that's if rankings are something to go by, I know they're not, but just to take that as an example, we could have all of those have icing off, which is quite nice to see how the draw's actually gone in terms of that way. But
go on.
I'm really looking forward to it, and I think Robbo's my tip. But as I say, Brassel's one to watch out for. Of course, Ronnie is the favourite, but in a lot of horse races, the favourite doesn't win. So I'm taking that mentality here, and I certainly wouldn't bother betting on Ronnie with those odds at 2-1.
Yeah,
or the Betfred boost at 3-1.
Yeah, how ridiculous was that this morning for anyone watching? You included Barry Hearn. If you're watching, that was a poor move. Anyway. I think if Ronnie gets past the quarterfinals, Ronnie wins it. I think, unless it's Selby playing him, I don't think Ronnie can be beaten over 4 sessions. But he's vulnerable in the first rounds. Even Maguire could pose a threat against him. He has nearly beaten him in the past many times. He'd beaten him at the Masters a few years ago. Ding and Trump are also bogey players for Ronnie. So, as you say, he's got a lot of obstacles to overcome. So if he gets to the final, he'll have beaten the other best players in the tournament. It's as simple as that. And, then he's got to try and beat Robertson, we think. So it's going to be very tough for Ronnie. But, if he plays his best stuff, nobody can compete with him. So it's as simple as that, really. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the World Championship preview. Before we go, we're just going to have a little look at the odds. So, as Toby alluded to before, we've got Ronnie O'Sullivan 2-1 to win the. We're using Sky Bet for this. Ronnie O'Sullivan to win is 2-1. The whole tournament. Judd Trump at 5s is quite short in my opinion. He hasn't proved that he can win a best of 33 match or best of 35 match. He's proved it once in his life, so I don't think that's an accurate one. Robertson 11-2 is worth a bit of money if you're a big bettor, then that's a decent price I think for Robbo. Selby 9-1, a bit short again, but you can never discount him. Kyron Wilson, you were saying before, Kyron Wilson, the 5th favourite for this year's World Championship, which, a lot of people back him, but I think that's a little short, but decent odds at 16-1. Any in there that you're thinking worth an each way punt?
I find this little thing interesting, not necessarily in terms of outrights, but in terms of you can name who's going to win each finals, and our little tip before, Russell, I think he will be in the 3rd quarter final if he gets there. He's actually 10-1 at the moment to go through that, so that's quite a good bet if you're looking to make some good money there. But equally, in that 3rd quarter final, there's some quite big runners and riders. You've got Selby at kind of 13-8 favourite, Mark Allen 2-1, and then Lazowski 6s, Russell 10s, and Ali 12s. I don't think there's a bad bet there. You could quite easily vouch for either Lazowski, Brissell, or Carter to go through that final potentially. But obviously Selby and Allen are the big favourites there. Interesting, the 4th quarter final that Judd Trump is 2-1. He can beat Ronnie. What am I on about? Rono. That's the one. Ronnie. But as I said, Kyron Wilson, way too short. Way too short for me. I think Mark Williams is worth an each way again. I know you don't agree particularly. Bear in mind, each way is only played on 2 places. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So Robbo is definitely worth an each way punt, as well as I'm going to go for Mark Williams and Robertson for an each way punt. And to be fair, Brissell 60. I mean, he's 28-1 to reach the final. So
you're better off doing a 66 each way, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. But like I say, he's 28 to reach the final, 66 is to win the tournament. It's all out. Of course, you get a fifth. Don't actually get half of the odds. Okay, that's good. You get half the odds then if he finishes in 2nd. That's pretty good. But I think that Neil Robertson will win it for me. I think it'll be a Robertson against Ronnie final, I would guess. But it wouldn't be surprised if it was, Robbo and Trump. There's a lot of different finals we could have. But my top 4 in this: Robbo, Mark Williams, O'Sullivan, and who's the other one?
Brissell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious punter's choice is going to be a Ronnie versus Robertson final, but it never quite works out that way. I mean, who would have guessed a Mark Williams, John Higgins final last time out? It's unpredictable, the World Championship, and I think it's going to be an incredible 17 days. I'm sure we'll do some podcasts throughout it to talk about the big talking points. I know we did last year for the big Carter O'Sullivan controversy, which was quite a funny podcast. But that is pretty much our preview done for this year's World Championship. Have you got anything else to say, Tobias?
Come on, Robbo.
Yeah, come on, Ronnie, for me. So, but I think it will be a sensational final if it's Ronnie versus Robbo in the final. I think that would be most people's choice for the final this year. So, I just want to say a massive thank you to you all for coming along. We've had consistently over 70 people in the stream, a peak of 85, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for coming along and spending a little bit of your evening with us and getting hyped for this World Championship starting on Saturday. It is going to be on BBC 2 at 10 a.m. in the morning, or Eurosport as well if you want to watch the Eurosport coverage. It'll be on the website and Red Button throughout the championships on the BBC, and of course you'll get to hear the wonderful dulcet tones of John Virgo and Dennis Taylor if you choose to do it on the BBC. But it's going to be a fantastic 17 days. I cannot wait. I know Toby's looking forward to it as well. And hopefully you guys are looking forward to it and are going to enjoy it when it comes about. So any more final words to say to the folk that are watching us tonight or listening on Spotify? You know.
Well, if Robertson doesn't win, or Rob or Ronnie, it won't provide any solace.
Oh dear. Getting the Snooker 19 quotes in there. Oh, we've got some Snooker 09 quotes in there. Yeah. You just got to get some Snooker 04 in there now. But no, thank you very much for coming along tonight. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like down below. If you're watching it as a video after the event, in the last couple of years I've done one of these, a lot of people do, then let us know down in the comments who you think will win this year's Betfred World Championship, and also leave a like if you have enjoyed listening on. If you're listening on Spotify, we do it live on YouTube at the time. You can get involved in the chat. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend, Easter weekend, whatever you're doing, and we'll see you after the event once the World Championship has started. See you later, guys.
Goodbye.